This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Gotham City is out of control.
An entire city screaming in fear.
Supervillains walk the streets, preying on the innocent.
They will learn the true nature of power.
The police are powerless. A creature prowls this urban wasteland.
Who's that?
He moves in darkness. For some, he is a rumor, a name whispered in the corridors of the underworld, waiting for the chance to strike. Let every criminal know the acid taste of fear.
You're crazy! Bat! Giant bat!
Gotham has forgotten what justice means. The Dark Knight is here to remind them. Who are you? Batman. Good guys wear black.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 247 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal. With me, my good friend, good brother, the man that runs our Twitter account. That's right, it's Liam. Liam, we are continuing here in the month of February, doing our Batman the Animated Series reviews, and we have one this week that, as I admitted last week, is not one that I remember very well. Well, maybe we can talk about that in a moment as to just why, but we are reviewing a follow-up episode to one of our seminal episodes, maybe one of the most legendary episodes in the entire Batman the Animated Series run, with the episode that we're covering today.
That is right. It's the return of quite a few familiar characters, including, of course, Ra's al Ghul, and that is, of course, the episode not James Cameron's Avatar.
That's right. As you mentioned, return of several exciting, recurring, legendary Batman characters here this week. But before we, of course, get into our breakdown of our four categories, we will, of course, get the official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode, which, of course, is brought to you by The Pod Tower. Head over to youtube.com/The Pod Tower today. Subscribe to our channel there and like our videos. Not only do you get our entire catalog, you can check out the aforementioned episode featuring Ra's al Ghul. That's right, confirmed to be Ra's al Ghul, not Ra's al Ghul, by the person who directed this episode himself. That's right. Head over to youtube.com/The Pod Tower and subscribe today.
That's right. So this is the synopsis for Avatar, which was written by Michael Reeves, directed by a friend of the show, Kevin Altieri, music by Michael McChristian and Carlos Rodriguez, and animation by Studio Junio. And that synopsis reads as such. Batman travels to Egypt and joins with Talia to hunt down Ra's al Ghul, who is searching for an ancient source of ultimate power.
You know, I might give that an A also. We gave an A to last week's description. Whoever wrote the last two really did their homework, really put in extra effort.
I was going to say, you know why this one's great? Is because it's exactly what the awesome epic announcer guy would say in those old Fox Kids promos. Monday on Batman, he travels to Egypt and to hunt down Ra's al Ghul, who is searching for an ancient source of ultimate power. And then the Danny Elfman theme plays.
There you go. Absolutely. Can Batman find his way out? Tune in.
Right. And then they'd show the footage of them being in the glass case. Yep, absolutely. So that's a good one. And it does pretty accurately encapsulate our episode, as mentioned, returning faces and some interesting thing. But we, rather than, I think, the previous race episode seemed pretty centered in the Middle East and Asia. Here we are in Africa for this one. This is a very Egyptian themed romp, traveling adventure for Bruce and Batman.
That is right. And speaking of Egypt, that is where we pick things up we start out in the year 1898. So not 50 years from now, whenever now is, but maybe 50 years from the past, whenever the past is. We have, or 100 years in the past, hundreds of years in the past. We have a scene that is completely silent, other than just the soundtrack accompanying the visuals that we get there. So no dialogue, no sound effects, but we do see a young explorer with his young companion as they are headed out exploring into this rather large pit in the ground. Perhaps maybe your first thought is to think that it's an exploration of the Lazarus pit, but no, it is in fact an Egyptian tomb, it looks like. So the explorer arrives and is lowered down into this pit, and he begins exploring with his lantern, and finds many prototypical Egyptian artifacts. We get the dog head statue, got a lot of dog statues down there, some cat statues. The stuff that you find if you were in an Egyptian tomb, of course. So as he's sort of exploring and looking around, he's super excited to see this one dog statue. And as he's standing there, he sort of pans to the right, and there's this doorway that begins glowing this very bright neon green color. And we then cut back to the surface above this pit, where we see the rope is beginning to get pulled down into the pit. So those that had accompanied this explorer are beginning to freak out. So they begin trying to pull him back up, only to come up with a rope that has been burned off at the end. And that is where we cut back to the present day, where, wouldn't you know it, in present day Gotham City, Lucius Fox and Bruce are sort of perusing and gloating over this Egyptian artifact, a bunch of Egyptian artifacts that have been set up for this museum display. And one of the artifacts, as it happens to be mentioned, of course, we get some great exposition by Lucius himself, telling us that it's the oldest Egyptian document known to man, or at least half of it.
Without a doubt, this will be one of the best museum exhibitions Gotham City has ever seen. You can be quite the humanitarian on occasion, Bruce. It's commendable. It's inspiring.
It's deductible.
The Scroll of Osiris. Pity only half of it exists. It's the oldest Egyptian document known to man.
Yeah. Oops, I gotta go meet Tammy at Chardet's.
Such a pity.
And then we cut later on in that same evening as we have a masked thief that breaks into that same room where these artifacts are being held. And what did you know? And he heads right to this ancient map, or the half of the ancient map, and smashes it. But meeting him right there in the doorway, of course, is the Dark Knight, who arrives on the scene just at the right time to not only detain said masked individual, but unmask him. And he's quite surprised to see that the man beneath the mask is none other than Ubu, Ra's al Ghul's heavy. And just as he is sort of processing the fact that Ubu is there and trying to put the pieces together with his head, he turns around to hear none other than Ra's al Ghul himself. And Ra's, after a little bit of dialogue, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna fight Batman and with fisticuffs? Of course he's not. He's gonna hurl an Egyptian cobra at him, Liam. What else do you do in these moments, right? You throw a snake at somebody.
This is a first time and maybe an only time that we see a snake. Superman fights a snake in the Main Man episode. I think maybe there's a new Batman Adventures episode, the circus one, where there's a snake involved in that. But I don't think I've ever just seen someone pull a snake out of their pocket and hurl it at someone in one of these shows before.
Is that a snake in your pocket, Ra's, or are you just trying to kill Batman?
You could have been my successor, detective. Instead, you will suffer the fate of all mortal flesh.
Well, it turns out
Classic.
he is trying to kill Batman, and unfortunately for Batman, the snake bites him right in the arm, pumping him with venom, and Batman begins to slowly fade. Luckily for Batman, though, he happens to have the snake anti-venom with him right on his belt, and is able to administer it before passing out and awaking back in the Batcave. And that's where Batman begins to sort of piece things together and sort of disclose to Alfred his concern that not only is Ra's back, but he's up to something.
Snake venom?
From an Egyptian cobra. Extremely deadly.
You're certain it was Ra's al Ghul?
None other.
But I thought he died in the pit months ago.
So did I. That piece of papyrus is obviously very important to him. I have to find out why.
Where are you off to now? Just in case the stockholders ask.
Gibraltar. There's someone I've been meaning to look up.
That's right. So after a brief discussion with Alfred, and a very classic Batman deduction here, he deduces that the cobra and the specific type of cobra is native to Egypt. And so he knows he's going to be hot on the trail there, and specifically to Gibraltar. And he's off on the road, and we'll talk about this in visual. But this so begins a series of just incredible Bruce Wayne fits in this episode. Incredible series of outfits that Bruce is wearing for the rest of this episode. But so he's on the hunt, and it leads him to this sort of this estate, this castle. Somewhere in Gibraltar, and as he's approaching there are some guards out front who are seemingly just keeping watch as Bruce turns, and they bring into action an attempt to rob him. He's able to disarm them, and before he has a chance to really throw down with them, he gets a little bit of help by none other than Talia, who has returned here. And that's our big act 1 act break there. And as we return, we learn that Talia was not aware that her father was still alive after the events of the Demon's Quest parts 1 and 2, and that she feels that perhaps though she is still very loyal to him, that perhaps he doesn't feel the same about her. There's sort of this moment of real sorrow for her. But Bruce, as she and Bruce sort of begin to talk about this scroll that Ra's and Ubu stole, Talia just packed with exposition here to let us know that it's apparently due to this former Egyptian queen that Ra's has been obsessed with finding.
He took quite a risk stealing that scroll from me. Why does he want it so badly?
It's part of a map. My father has the other half. As long as I can remember, he's been obsessed with finding...
Finding what?
The tomb of the ancient queen Thoth Capera. It lies somewhere in the Canyon of Tombs. Many who've sought it have vanished.
And why does Ra's seek it?
I don't know. You must believe me.
I have to go after him, Talia. Will you help me?
You are so like him, making me choose between the two of you. Oh, beloved, why has he forsaken me? Does he think I've betrayed him?
I can't pretend to know what Ra's thinks, Talia. The only thing he and I have ever agreed upon is our feelings towards you.
My father used to have a hidden sanctuary in Cairo. Perhaps he still uses it.
It's worth a try.
And that she had allegedly, this queen had discovered another secret, another way to have immortality, which of course Ra's is obsessed with. And I guess since they destroy the Lazarus, well, no, they don't destroy it because Ra's falls into it. I guess he says in that episode that the Lazarus pit won't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to find another way to stay alive here. So, but Ra's has apparently been obsessed with this Egyptian queen, and now he has this other half of this map that or the scroll that he's looking for that will lead him to this tomb. And so Talia and Bruce decide to team up to try to track him down and figure out exactly what he's after. And we move on to Bruce Wayne gallivanting archaeologist fit number 2, as he and Talia are exploring some kind of a small village outside of not too far from where it is, and they enter into a little shop where a shop owner is trying to sell them supposedly ancient Egyptian statues, which have a very funny sight gag where Bruce looks down and sees that there's a crate full of them with a giant Made in China logo on the sign of them, which is
loved it.
It's a good visual gag.
Yep.
It's a very funny little
Very
bit.
funny.
And but Talia is sure that this shop is supposedly the location where Raish has a secret lair where he was sort of gathering intel, and so we bring out this, as far as I can remember, the first and only time used, this sonic device that allows Bruce to find a hidden door.
Yep.
So he turns it on.
What does he call it? He has like a name for it. What does he call it?
He does have a specific name for it.
I wrote it down in my notes here. Ultrasound imager.
Yeah, he should have just brought those red goggles.
Oh, well, that would have been too conspicuous. He needs a modern cell phone sized device to have in his pocket to pull out just in case he needs to find a secret door. I mean, what else would you carry in your pocket? A snake?
Naturally. Well, but yes. but yes, this magic device does in fact lead them to a conspicuous sarcophagus. That's a lot of syllables.
That's good.
And inside is in fact the secret door to this lair where we finally get the father and daughter reunion that Talia, I guess, had been hoping for, but it's not exactly what she wishes for, as Raish is very cold to her and makes it very clear that when Talia him to spare Bruce's life in their previous meetings, that's basically the same as as her taking a stand against him or fighting against him herself, and so he no longer has a use for her, and he no longer wants to see her as his daughter, and so he's off. He has the second half of the scroll, very Indiana Jones style move here. He drops them, or even almost like a James Bond type thing, I guess. A glass tube drops from the ceiling and traps Bruce and Talia, and it looks like they are trapped as Raish and Ubu go off to find this secret tomb now that he has both halves of the scroll.
That's right. Now, we must mention, before Raish has this dialogue with Talia, and after they've entered this through this secret door, they do see that there's a translation that Raish has made of the map itself. He's gone through, he's translated the hieroglyphics, I guess, into something that is understandable by Bruce, because that comes up right immediately after this. But we learn that the scroll contains the secret location, as you mentioned, of this tomb, and it's an ancient ruler named Thoth Kafera, or something like that. Capera, Thoth. Try saying that one 5 times fast. I'm lisping over here.
No.
And as you said, Raish declares her to have the power to grant life and death, but he does it all like Ra's al Ghul, like, very dramatic.
Did you really think I would be foolish enough not to have this sanctum under observation?
Father, you really are alive.
Yes, Talia, I am alive. No thanks, I regret to say, are due you for my current state of health.
No, Father, you can't believe that. I only tried to save the man I love.
You've got a serious priority problem, Raish. What can be in that tomb that's more valuable than the love of your daughter?
Power, detective. The power once held by almighty Thoth Capera, queen of 2 continents.
You surprise me, Raish. The world's oldest chauvinist chasing after a woman.
Thoth Capera was not simply a woman, detective, nor merely a ruler. Through her flowed the power of the gods. With no more than a gesture, she controlled the force of life and death, and with it she kept a nation under her thumb for 1,000 years.
You sound like a bad Saturday afternoon cereal, Raish. This is sheer nonsense.
No, detective. I know there is a power there to be tapped. My 600 years of life are proof of that power. Farewell, detective. Farewell, Talia. It is said that one finds immortality in one's offspring. Alas, I know that to be a lie.
So after they're trapped in the cage and Raish and Ubu abscond with the map, we cut back to Talia and Bruce stuck in the glass, and Talia talking about how the air is waning and that they don't have much time left, and Bruce, of course, not willing to give up. He, wouldn't you know, he pulls out Chekhov's ultrasound imager and is able to secure it to the glass and reverse the polarity or something, I guess. I don't know. And this causes, not before, of course, ripping out the pockets of his pants and jamming them into his and Talia's ears. Not, and that's not a euphemism for anything. He literally rips his pockets out and shoves the pieces into his and Talia's ears, and then turns on the ultrasound imager in reverse or whatever, which causes the glass to break because it creates such a high pitched noise, I guess, or something. Yeah, I mean, sure.
Of course. Don't you know anything about science?
Yeah, I clearly don't. I'm no scientist, a science man. Get out of here.
I would question how they shattered that much glass and not a single piece of it touched them, but I think the answer is this is a children's show and I should shut up.
It broke out in every direction, but the glass piece above them also broke out with such force. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so as they have now broken free, Bruce believes he knows exactly what Raish's plans are simply from the brief look that he got at the translation of the hieroglyphics, and he takes out wouldn't you know, his final fit for the episode is, of course, the classic bat suit. So he pulls out his bat suit out of his backpack, and he and Talia are off to locate where they believe Raish, or at least intercept where they believe Raish is headed. So they enter, and it is, I believe, the same exact entry point that we saw at the very beginning in the opening scene. This it's a hole in the ground. It's a cavern in the land. So they arrive there, and they're shocked that they may have beaten Raish there. As they enter the pit, we get two pairs of legs appearing, and of course those belong to Raish and Ubu, who have been sitting there waiting for Batman and Talia to enter the tomb themselves. And that kind of sets up our third and final act. Is we get a little bit more of the exploration of what's going on. Ubu and Raish have brought two heavies with them, one of whom definitely resembles director of the episode Kevin Altieri. Drawn himself into the show. Gotta love that. And there's a brief scuffle between the heavies, the henchmen, and Batman and Talia, as Raish insists that he's gonna find the secrets here. But as he takes off the cover to the coffin and reveals these documents that he believes that are going to give him, these ancient scrolls that are going to give him the power of life and death, they disintegrate into a bajillion pieces of dust. So that it looks like at this point that Raish is foiled at this point, and that the secrets will remain with this ancient being. But Raish just happens upon a secret passageway, speaking of Indiana Jones, where he pushes a statue's head down, and there's a even deeper pit below this sarcophagus that had these scrolls that disintegrated. And Raish, of course, what are you gonna do? You gotta go further down and explore. What else are you gonna do? And as he enters, Liam, the ominous hundreds of skeletons do nothing to determine Raish. He is headed towards the glowing green pit, which may or may not be a Lazarus pit, not sure, but certainly seems to resemble one. And a being appears and begins talking to Raish, and Well, I don't think this is going to go well for old Raish.
I am Father Capera. Those who have joined me share their knowledge with me. We are Legion.
I am called Raish Al Ghul. I have searched for you for over 500 years. Tell me your secrets. Grant me the powers of the gods that legend says you possessed.
That knowledge can be yours if you join us. Come forward, Raish Al Ghul. Come and know the mysteries of life and death.
Yes, well, at first it seems to be just everything he wanted, which is this beautiful Egyptian queen walks out of the green sludge and declares that she and all of these bodies around them, they have all joined together, and that is how they are, this incredible source of knowledge and immortality is because they all join together. They are Legion, in fact. She says, invoking, of course, the as the DCAU wiki let us know. That's a very famous demon, and that involves not just in biblical in scripture, but also in a lot of pop culture will use that character. So so there's as you said, if the dead bodies didn't give you a bad feeling about this, then perhaps that admission would. But yes, Raish is all too happy to join with her, and they seem to be sharing a kiss. But as Bruce and Talia finally take care of Ubu and the other henchmen, they run down to see that, in fact, it is not a beautiful lady, but a haggard old, nearly bald, gray-skinned zombie woman who is quite literally sapping the life force out of Raish, stealing his youth and virality, and as she begins to fade, and Bruce and Talia try to get involved to stop her, she begins to make these like green sludge monsters rise from the ooze that she stepped out of, and eventually she can also make it into like tendrils and tentacles. So Batman, he just straight up lobs a grenade at her.
Yeah,
that's Batman's first move here, is to throw a grenade, which does not work. The queen seems completely unscathed by it. So as Talia gets Raish to safety, Batman decides the next best thing. If you can't kill this thing or destroy it, then the next best thing you can do is to rebury it, to make sure that nobody else can ever raise this tomb again. So he is able to, using just some Herculean leg strength, he's able to climb up and sort of get between the wall and this giant statue, another dog statue. Is that, I should know this from all the times I've watched Charlton Heston's 10 Commandments. Is the dog Baal or is that Ra?
A quick Google search says it's Anubis. Anubis is
okay.
the dog.
Well, we'll say it's Anubis, but regardless, the dog-headed Egyptian god statue, a giant statue, Batman's able to drop it on the opening to her tomb right as those green sludge tendrils are coming out, and it crushes that entrance and seemingly seals her up for good. But it also the entire tomb to become falling down again in a very Indiana Jones moment. Everybody starts running. Talia and Raish apparently have already gotten to safety, but Ubu and the other henchmen are still there, and Batman runs by them, and they're all just sort of standing there yelling at him and getting ready for another fight. But then they see the tomb is crumbling, and they begin to make their way out as well. And a funny little incident happens here as Ubu sort of trips and falls, and is seemingly not going to make it as the tomb crumbles around him. But Batman comes back and pulls him to safety at the last minute, which sets up our final couple of minutes here. Ra's just turns back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
He had turned very old and withered because of his life force being drained, but I guess if you don't get all of it, it just comes back to you. So he turns back to his old self there, and as we get this one final scene of everyone being led on horseback, as we see Ra's and his henchmen are tied to their horses, and Talia and Ra's sort of have a moment where they make up, and Ra's admits that even though he had sort of closed his heart to her, she did not do the same to him, and that he's he realizes that she really is deserving of his love and deserving of being his daughter. And that's all Talia needs to once again to betray Batman. She pulls the gun on him and tells him that she can't allow Bruce to take her father and his henchmen in and turn them into the authorities. And she leaves him. She takes his horse, seemingly stranding him in the middle of nowhere. And right as we end there, we get one little final taunt from Ra's.
What will you do now?
Take them back to the authorities. Your father has much to answer for.
I am truly sorry, beloved, but he is my father. Please, dismount.
Another time, detective.
Yes, another time.
As Batman is seemingly being stranded with no horse and no way to get back to civilization other than walking, we see that kindness paid to Ubu return as he throws him a canteen of water, and so Batman marches. They walk their separate ways quite literally as his gallop in one direction and begins the slow walk back to civilization on the other side, as he sort of vows that this is not the last time that he and Ra's will come face to face. So that's where our episode wraps up for this week.
It sure is. And if I can just say, Batman he lets Talia go. Like, he lets her go. There's no other explanation for this. She briefly has a gun like pointed at him. He could have backhanded the gun out of his face. No way that he couldn't have backhanded the gun out of. Okay, even if you say it's like,
or at least tried.
Yeah, okay. Or when she takes him off of the horse, at that point, she is the only person who is not secured to their horse. So he could have done something to spook the horse to get it to rear and knock her off. He could have gone into his utility belt and thrown a batarang. Like, there's 55 things he could have done, but instead he just chooses to let her go. Interesting choice.
Pretty much. Not for the first time. He let her go at the end of Demon's Quest as well. So yeah, he's got a weakness here. And again, you can go back to our review of Off Balance when Kevin Altieri, I think, had some pretty interesting theories as to why Talia is kind of a unique weakness, if you want to use that word for Batman, and why this sort of thing keeps happening when when Batman and Talia are together. Her kind of just getting the drop on him or pulling the rug out from under him, and him kind of, maybe, as you said, not exerting all of the abilities that he has at his disposal, and simply kind of drops his guard and lets her go, as you said. So I guess we can get to our scores here. I really like the concept of this episode because we don't get out of Gotham City very often. I think we said the same thing when we reviewed Demon's Quest. I like that all of these Raish episodes so far, at least, have been like a jaunt where we go on like an overseas adventure. But in execution, I like the first part of the episode where Bruce is sleuthing through Egypt with Talia, but the last act, I think, is just kind of lets it down. Because the villain at the end is a weird, maybe it's like you said, Lazarus Pit, which is a pre-established thing in this show, but otherwise she's just magic.
Yeah.
And obviously later on with Justice League and even Superman and stuff, mysticism and magic becomes a big part of this universe. But to this point in the show, even though like Zatanna's already been in the show and Raish has already been on the show, and there's characters with superpowers like Man-Bat or Clayface or whoever, it's all very much always been like they're all like science freaks,
right?
Very like 1940s, 1930s, 1940s supervillains. And this just being like a zombie woman who can magically drain the life force out of someone and can make giant green sludge monsters just feels like such a left to this show. And again, it's maybe more acceptable if you accept it as part of this larger world, but for like a one-off Batman story, I don't know, man. This does not feel like it jives. Like that last act does not feel like it jives with the rest of the series at all.
Yeah, I can see that. I went with a 7 out of 10 for my score for plot. I do like the first 2/3 of it. I agree with you. It feels like this is almost like a trilogy. We had Off Balance that introduced Raish to the universe. We had Batman traversing the globe in that episode. You had him and Talia off on their own and doing things. Then you have Raish introduced at the end, and then of course you had the Demon's Head, or Demon's Quest rather. That we have that itself is also traversing the globe, as you mentioned. We have all these different unique exotic locations, and felt very Lawrence of Arabia, or what the other things we compared it to. This again sort of has that exploration, archaeological Indiana Jones and whatever predecessor there may have been to Indiana Jones in serials in like the probably in the 40s and 50s. But yeah, it feels almost like, and we probably should have picked his brain on this when we had the opportunity to, but it feels like it was almost inspired by some like 50s monsters movies or something like that. Like
there's even a line that Batman has, I think, when he first sees Raish in the museum, and he's like, "You've been watching too many Saturday morning serials," or something.
Right.
Like, yeah, it does feel like this might be a more specific homage to something that's just our generation would not necessarily pick up on.
Right. Yeah, which we know that the creators borrowed from a lot of stuff and were used a lot of inspirations and things that were near and dear to them. And Kevin has a very unique set of inspirations at times. So perhaps it was something like that. I get what you're saying. Like for the series at the time, we didn't really have a whole lot of these supernatural elements that have been introduced to yet. You have guys with guns and gangsters and colorful rogues gallery, but not this monster movie supernatural element that occurs in this. I think Bruce's or Batman's response, at least, of being completely weirded out. He says, as they're escaping the tomb and trying to get out, after Raish has this interaction, he says, he tells Talia to take Raish out and that he's going to do whatever he can to stop this thing, he says, in sort of a very dramatic tone. So I feel like later on in the DCAU, the deeper we get into it, the less surprised Batman is with, after he's met aliens and demigods and all these other things that he's interacted with. nothing is surprising to him. So I do at least enjoy the fact that here he is a little bit taken aback as to what he's dealing with. But yeah, there's some elements there. It's the day glow green too. I think maybe if you, it's just kind of bizarre. But yeah, I didn't hate it. You know, it's a little bit goofy at the end. It is a little more science fiction-y or monster movie than maybe the rest of the stories that we've gotten, especially involving Raish. But I just chalk that up to, again, probably something that was an homage that maybe has gone over our heads. But yeah, I think overall for what they were going for, I think they pulled it off. So I went with a decent 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm just a couple points lower. I went 5 out of 10. Like I said, I do like it, and yeah, if you use as we said, the sort of the Indiana Jones model, that is kind of an element of that where he's kind of a skeptic and doesn't really believe in the supernatural side of things, and then by the end of the movie, there's an immortal race of Aztec warriors chasing him or something like. And it's very much that is very much a trope of those movies, and then things that were inspired by them, like if you played like the Tomb Raider or Uncharted games or anything like that, stuff that was inspired by that sort of globe-trotting adventurer archaeologist genre. I think that maybe that does fit with it there. It's just, for some reason, that being the finale, a zombie Egyptian queen with sludge powers was just, I was like, I don't think this is it. This isn't really working for me. But like I said, I do think there's fun to be had, and it's just fun to get out of Gotham once in a while and see him out of quite literally out of his element in a few ways.
I guess no disagreement alarm, right? Like not enough
2 points. I don't think so.
Yeah. We got to at least have 3, and maybe the word I disagree in order for the disagreement alarm to kick in. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be visuals and animation. And as you mentioned at the top, our animation this week was done by Studio Junio or Junio, whichever pronunciation you want to go with. They, of course, didn't do a ton, but some of the more memorable episodes. They, of course, were responsible for Bad Episode Jar gets a $1 placed on it this week with the mention of the Underdwellers. And then, of course, they also did Blind as a Bat, and Dreams in Darkness, Mudslide, and most recently the one we covered, A Bullet for Bullock. Let's talk about visuals. What stood out for you? Lots of things, lots of enjoyable things here. I think we need to start off at the top. Let's not bury the lead. Bruce's outfits. Boy, man, right out the gate, we get a brand new suit. It's he gets a dark gray suit, but he's got like a blue shirt with it.
I thought it was like a pinkish
you're right.
shirt.
You're right. It was a pink shirt. Pink shirt, gray suit. Very cool looking. Very cool combination. Setting him up while he's talking with Lucius. We then get our next shot of him is on the plane. I think we get him, and he's wearing like this. I didn't write it down. His traversing outfit. I just wrote he has a traversing outfit. Was that where he has the tan suit on minus the fedora?
Yes, I believe so. He's just but that's and then when he first meets back up with Talia,
it's almost like a Cuban, like something you would see somebody wearing Cuba.
Absolutely, yeah. The only thing is like you swap out like the brown shirt for like a floral pattern or something. But yes, very summer suit, a warm weather suit. Yeah, he's got this like tan suit with a tan tie and like a UPS brown shirt and a fedora with brown stripe around it as well. So just tremendous looking outfit. And say it's fun because we get to see him do some combat in that outfit. It's just awesome. And then from there we also get speaking of there's a part where he and Talia are in like a little 2-seater plane as they're flying to try to intercept Raish at the market. And they're both in like these little like World War I like Amelia Earhart that's like the brown leather jackets with the helmets with the big goggles on them, like the Snoopy outfit, if you will. But, love that. And then we get his actual like archaeologist's outfit, which here's where the baby blue shirt comes in with those weird pants that everyone's wearing.
They're like
I know
they're Vandal Savage pants. They're like the same. They're like big pockets, pleated. I don't know what that's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a real person wear these, so I'm not sure what exactly they're supposed to look like. If they're supposed to have like very large pockets for carrying like a staff or a sword or something, or some other supplies or something. If they really do exist, please let us know. Tweet us at DCAU Review, or comment on our Instagram, and let us know what we're missing here. But yeah, everybody's wearing these weird pants. Bruce, no exception, with his brown archaeologist pants and his blue shirt, and then of course we get the Batman outfit. So Bruce, but definitely. Oh, and the archaeologist outfit. He has blue the blue shirt, the gray pants, and then like brown like knee-high boots. Not quite knee-high, like shin-high, but in my heart they're knee-high boots. Just an incredible array of we joked there's that episode, is it The Last Laugh, where Alfred opens the closet and there's just like 55 brown suits with yellow shirts on the hangers.
Yeah, I believe so.
It turns out that Bruce does have some other outfits in his repertoire, and it was fun seeing him there. Just because, and obviously why a cartoon character wears the same clothes all the time is because it's easier drawing these character constantly across 85 episodes. If you had to change his clothes every time you drew him, it would be an extra headache to have to work out. So the fact that he goes through that many wardrobe changes in a single episode, like that, had to be intentional. Like I wonder if that was on like the directing and storyboarding side of that, of just, hey, let's get Bruce in some different outfits and keep him out of the Batman suit for most of the episode, or if that was written into the script by Mr. Reeves. I'd be curious. Maybe something that's a random question we can maybe throw to Kevin the next time we get to chat with him. But that's Bruce. The Bruce Wayne fashion show is an immediate big thumb up for this episode.
Agreed. Yeah, that's probably the thing that I wanted to talk about. It's probably, like I said, it's the lead. We're going to talk about that. It's the top story, is Bruce's many costume changes throughout the episode. But some other things that I thought were worth noting. No bonus point for it this week, but I will off the top talk about the title card. I had never noticed before. Today's years old. Before I noticed that the hieroglyphics in the background included some Batman Easter eggs. We get like a Batarang in there, and some Batman eyes, and then of course the main central focus of the characters are going to be our Egyptian goddess and a character that looks a little bit like Raish. So very interesting, I will say.
Something that kind of looks like his demon's head mask as well is in there.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in there, little things that you can look at and enjoy. I will say, I sort of mentioned at the beginning, I don't think I'd studied this one too often. This was famously on the Cal and Liam do not watch list because of the the spookiness of the zombie creature at the end. So I think many times I watched like 3/4 of it and couldn't watch the final act because it was a little spooky, scary. So that's another reason why this one wasn't on repeat too often in our household, and didn't remember the beats too well. So but moving forward, I loved the opening sequence. Man, we talk about bold things that they did, that this series did, and we'll talk about it again in a moment here when we talk about our music for the episode. But boy, what a bold move here to start out the episode with 0 dialogue and 0 sound effects for like the first 2.5 to 3 minutes here, as we get this opening sequence of this explorer who may or may not be Raish. I guess it's Raish. Hard to say. I don't know. He looks like Raish, right? He looks like a young Raish. But
yeah, I was waiting for that to come back around, for it to be revealed that like he was obsessed with it because he had been to this tomb once before and had this mysterious experience, or that it was like his brother or his father or something.
right, because there's like a young kid that's also introduced at the beginning. So
Mhm.
maybe, is this,
Well, I
was
guess
that
Raish would already
Raish?
be like 500 years old at that point. So I guess
True.
he couldn't be the kid, but he could be. Yeah, he could have been related to it somehow, or the kid could have like relayed the story to him or something. Like I was waiting
Right.
for some sort of more direct connection to that opening sequence.
Yeah, especially because again, the guy kind of looks like Raish, like definitely looks like a younger version of
Mm-hmm.
Raish. So very, very odd choice. But anyway, that the entire opening sequence, I loved how it was done. Very dramatic, especially when the rope starts getting pulled on, and they're frantic to try and pull this explorer back up, and then the rope is sort of just left dangling there with the burnt edge at the bottom of it. Very very mystery, cliffhangery. We're not sure what's coming next, but we know something bad happened in the pit. So yeah, very very cool. I loved that. We already talked a little bit about Bruce's suits, of course, but also, as you mentioned, the fact that Bruce has this little bit where he fights these guards out in front of this castle, and then I don't know if it was done like as a cover up, like in case somebody had just seen the world famous Bruce Wayne like kick these guys asses, or what it was, but like he definitely hands their lunch to them, and then he like does this karate pose afterwards. Did you
Mm-hmm.
notice that?
Yeah, he's really feeling himself in that sequence,
So
using the
good.
suitcase as the weapon, and,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he's real fired up for that. I really enjoyed that sequence there, just the way the guards sort of come out of the shadows, and then he just kind of turns and swings there. There's the sequence where they're in the shop with the before Raish and Ubu show up, when they first discover the secret passage, and the shop owner and the two thugs jump them. You get like a little bit like Talia gets to do the Batman thing where
Mm-hmm.
like the big guy tries to run up from behind on her, and she gives him the elbow and flings him over her head with like a judo move or something. Yeah, there's the fights in this episode are pretty fun for what we get.
Yeah, we get kicks to the face, couple kicks to the face actually. Talia
Mm-hmm.
delivers a roundhouse at one point to one of these heavies. There's some good action there. And as we mentioned, the snake bite, that's pretty intense. Batman
Mm-hmm.
getting bitten by a wild animal. There's
That
some
that
good
whole sequence is great. Ubu in like his weird like phantom ninja outfit
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
with like the big like the executioner cowl type look for him, and then Batman's kind of in silhouette for most of that, and of course then Raish literally walking out of the shadows to reveal himself. Yeah, it's a really fun sequence.
And then that's followed up by another silhouette play. It was very interesting. It's Bruce and Alfred in the Batcave as they're studying the pathogen, or the not the pathogen, the poison that's in Batman's bloodstream. And we get this shot of just the silhouettes of Alfred and Batman in front of the fully lit bat computer. So we get them silhouetted by the screen. I thought that was really really unique. It was a unique little
Mm-hmm.
sequence. Again, I love things that you can kind of look at and see and be like, yeah, this would be a comic book panel. Like this looks
Mm-hmm.
like it could fit directly. If this was a still frame comic book panel, this would work for that perfectly. And the Batman, of course, walks right up to the elevator and steps into it, and he's fully silhouetted by the light from the elevator also. So some good silhouette play throughout the episode here. Let's see. We get the last thing that I kind of wanted to note was almost for the entire no, I think the entire final act, we get this weird sepia tone
Mm-hmm.
for the Batman highlights and for most of the characters. in the final scene. So it was interesting because it feels different. You feel like you're in a different
100%.
location. It doesn't feel like you're in the cold dark streets of Gotham. It does a lot, I feel like, to set the mood for where your placement of these characters are. So I liked it. I like the fact that they gave Batman these sort of dark, deep, rich brown highlights rather than the prototypical blue and blue and black that we typically would see.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I put that in my notes, but I had kind of forgotten to bring it up here. But yeah, from that whole end of second act to the whole third act there, where he's when they're arriving at the tomb on horseback, and then all the way kind of through there in the tomb, and all the way to the end there when they part ways. Yeah, it's everything's the blacks and the blues are all kind of replaced with these this brown and kind of tan colors. It's a really clever idea to make it blend in more, and to make it just give you that feeling, because we've talked about it, like the sepia tone stuff usually just comes in for flashbacks, and it actually does at the start of the episode when you're seeing this Egyptian tomb being exhumed in the 1800s. So the fact that they use that for the present day action at the end of the episode, I think it works. And then also because I think if Batman's blue is there, that also makes the stark contrast of that green, like the glowing green energy that radiates off the Queen, followed by this disgusting green sludge and tendrils, like that's less striking if Batman is blue the whole time in that sequence. So it's also a clever way of helping that visual stand out a little bit more, I think. So yeah, for all those reasons, I did like in a nitpicky way. I thought maybe Raish was a little off model for what we've seen in the previous couple of episodes, but I just chalked that up to a different animation studio than probably handled the last couple of ones that we've talked about. So I still ended up with a very strong 8 out of 10 for my visual score.
Yeah, I gave it the same exact score. I think we would be remiss not to mention, even though maybe you didn't care for it as a plot point, the visuals for our undead ghost princess are pretty striking. Like, they're pretty terrifying. A pretty ugly monster. One of the best sequences in the entire episode is as she's revealed in this green pit that may or may not be a Lazarus pit. She's drawing Raish to her, literally, with her voice, and Raish, sort of mesmerized, drops this sword that he's carrying and walks up to her, and we get Raish begins kissing her, and we get this shot that's a 180 shot. He has his hand on her face, and we see, and her hands are on his face, and it pans around back behind Raish's head, and we just kind of zooms in on his face, so you can only see her hand at this point, and you see that the hand is turned, to this skeletal, old, nasty, like undead hand, and it's such a quick little pivot thing that happens there. It's just a little 180 pan that happens, but again, chalking things up to the technology that was available at the time, how that may have been difficult to translate from what was storyboarded to what actually came out on screen. I thought it was done really well. I love also the sneaky reveal. You don't get the full skeletal reveal of her until the next scene, but here something's up. Like,
oh yeah, that little, they do like a 360 as they like go in for the kiss, they do that really cool 360 transition, and then you see the old withered hand kind of take, but then it kind of pans into the next scene, so it cuts there. Yeah, I thought that was a really neat trick as well.
Yeah, so despite maybe not loving the character as a plot point, the visuals at least are very, very striking, very interesting. It's not a dull moment, I think, in this entire episode, whether it's time exploring or the final battle scene between this undead princess and Batman. It's certainly very interesting. So Yeah, there's some good stuff in the episode. Also, I will say also the one shot where Ubu threw back in the original scene where he's yet to be unmasked, he kind of throws his knife at Batman, and Batman pulls out the old bat throwing star and throws it, and they meet, and they like the throwing star knocks the sword out out. I don't know physics of how that's possible, but it's freaking cool. It was freaking cool.
It was. Agreed.
All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which of course is going to be music for this week. And who did you say was in charge of music this week? Because I didn't note it.
we have two names there. Veteran of these DCAU shows, Michael McQuistion, and also a gentleman by the name of Carlos Rodriguez, responsible for our score this week. And I think the big notes is kind of like Demon's Quest before it. This episode very much takes cues from where it's set, so you get a lot of appropriate to the region music. Like you get a lot of like wind, like flute type instruments and things like that made in. Especially, I think that, as you mentioned, like the highlight, I think the single musical highlight, if you had to pick one, is that opening sequence where they're doing the flashback. There's no sound effects, there's no voice, there's no dialogue. It's just the music and what you're watching. And so that does a great job of setting the mood and kind of letting you know when the green light starts to form, and it kind of seems to have this little bit of sense of wonder to it. But then as the rope begins to tighten and they try to pull them out and clearly something's wrong, then it kind of cuts back and it becomes very dire. I thought that that was a really fun, unique choice, and I wonder which decision kind of came first, if that was scripted to be a music and visuals only sequence, or if when they got the score back, they were like, yeah, we don't need anything else for this. But that's probably the big highlight of the episode. But yeah, overall, I think the episode kind of again leans into a sort of grander, more sort of classic, again, like a Ten Commandments, like a Lawrence of Arabia type, classic grand orchestral moments that you get from, especially when they're showing off these tunes and these incredible visuals, that the background artists and everyone have created here, really adding to the scale of this, and adding to that feeling of, wow, this isn't your typical adventure for Batman. He's kind of out of his depth here. This is a much grander and more epic scale than we're used to, and I think the music kind of rises to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that first scene, especially with the way that the panic happens, where they're sort of struggling, and then you get the rope sort of cliffhanger moment there at the end. You got to wonder if that was they borrowed from Hitchcock all the time. They talk about the Hitchcockian influence, but that seems like a very letting the music sort of build the tension and then drop out at the very end there seems like something that you could have pulled directly from a Hitchcock. It's like Psycho. It's what you don't see, it's what you don't hear. It's it's the music that's sort of telling the story of what you're seeing on the screen and creating the intensity of the moment. And so I love also that the music sort of syncs up with the visuals very well. You get this one part of that scene where the horse rears back and begins to sort of clearly freak out, and instead of what your mind would expect to hear the horse begin whinnying or neighing at that point, you instead get these strings that kind of create a similar sound that you would expect to hear. So I really cool things that they did, especially with that opening scene. Very impressive. I would say, of course, the reveal of our zombie princess is certainly, there's some music that plays that creates an intensity of that. Also, you have the countdown almost of them racing to save Raish, of course, and the crumbling infrastructure of the tomb that they're in as well. And then I think the final scene, as we get Talia sort of turning on Batman once again, and Ubu tossing the water bottle to Batman, we get a sort of an intense to be continued cliffhanger. This isn't the last we'll see of Raish. sort of soundtrack that accompanies it. But overall, loved it. Loved the music. Felt very authentic. I think you can't ask for much more than what you got for this episode. And I just think that opening scene did so much. The music did so much to carry that and set the tone for it and create such a unique atmosphere for that scene specifically. I just loved it. So I went with a very strong 9 out of 10 for music. What about you?
Yeah, I went with an 8 out of 10. So yeah, really, really, really strong stuff, I think, from this. And that's, again, as we talked about, kind of a hallmark of this trilogy so far of Raish and Talia episodes, is that the scores, I think, add to that. They don't it's not your typical Batman the Animated Series episode, as great as those scores always are. It's fun to see them get to play in these different sandboxes and add music that sort of feels more thematically appropriate for our locations, and lets this feels very cliche to say, but lets the music kind of be its own character in the episode by changing. When you're in that opening sequence with Batman and we're still in Gotham and he's fighting down Ubu, it's very much your traditional BTOS music, and it's great. But once you're heading towards the tomb, or even when they're in the village outside and they're searching for this shop where the secret lair is, just changing with your location, I think is very clever, and it works really well to the episode's advantage.
Absolutely. All right, Liam, let's wrap it up here with our final category of the day, which of course is going to be our voice actors. Not a huge cast based on the fact that we have really 3 main players throughout, but we do have a few other ancillary actors and actresses to talk about. Let's go ahead and chat about the voice cast for this week's episode.
That's right. So first thing, this is a trivia note here that I saw mentioned.
True trivia, or is this DCAU wiki trivia? That's the question.
I would say this is actually good, proper trivia. It is from the DCAU wiki, or at least that was the first place I saw it. But 3 of the actors in this piece all appeared in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country together. Brock Peters, who of course plays Lucius Fox, David Warner, who is Ra's al Ghul, and Nichelle Nichols, who plays Thoth Kepera in this, all appeared in Star Trek. Miss Nichols is actually a long time. She goes back to the original Star Trek series. I think she was there for the whole run of the show. I think she was one of the more first and very high profile Black actresses on a major television show of the time. So something of a trailblazer in her own time there for her. So really cool that you snuck in a little reunion for some of these actors here. But yeah, it's always fun to get those little notes back in there. But those are are some of our guest stars here. I really like Mr. Warner always, as unfortunately he's also passed away just last year. Mr. Warner as Raish is always good, and of course we have George DiCenzo returning as Ubu as well. And then we have of course the great Helen Slater returning as Talia. And we've kind of sung her praises in, I think, both of our previous episodes with her, and she is good here. And it is mostly, even though we do have David Warner as Raish and we have Miss Nichols playing the Egyptian queen briefly, it is really mostly about Miss Slater, and of course the late Kevin Conroy as Batman. And Bruce getting to play off each other, and again to kind of see them work together and puzzling things out together and go on this adventure together. It's that's where the fun is, I think, is Miss Slater and of course Kevin's performance, and them getting to bounce off each other a little bit more.
Yeah, we get it reminds me of Off Balance, where we had, didn't have as much Raish in that. We barely had any Raish in it because he isn't revealed to the end. But you had a lot more of them interacting with each other, so you get a little bit more of that, and it lends a little bit more to the credence, I think, of them having a deeper relationship, other than because if you look at it in a vacuum, it's like, all right, why does Bruce love this woman? Like, why does he have feelings for this woman? Like, what, other than their like little adventure that they had in Off Balance, like what leads them to this romance? Other than the fact that her father tried to force him to marry her. Like, where's the romance in this relationship? So when you see them working together as a team here in this episode, which they also work together in Off Balance, you start to see, okay, well, they have chemistry together, they work together, they care about each other. He's, when they think they're going to die, or she thinks they're going to die together, she shares how much, she'd rather die with him than anybody else.
The air won't last much longer. It's not the end I would have chosen, beloved. But if we must die, I am glad we're together.
We're not licked yet. Cover your ears, Talia, and pray. Talia, I'll do whatever I have to stop him. You must know that.
I do. And though it breaks my heart, I will do what I must as well.
So you have a little bit more depth added to this relationship, at least. So it makes a little more sense when Kevin says stuff, famously, as you mentioned earlier in the episode, Kevin declared, in his opinion, Talia as Batman's one true love. So this lends a little credence, I would say, to that, when you see that there is more of a friendship, an adventure, a companion in through adventures together that these two share. So I think that they play off each other well. They have chemistry that clearly works well together. It's and they get to shine a lot in this episode, despite there being plenty of Raish. They're really the main focus, as you mentioned. So they stand out really well, and I thought everybody did a pretty solid job, which is why I ended up giving the voice actors and actresses an 8 out of 10 for this week.
Yeah, I give it the exact same score. I think everybody's pretty good. I think Mr. Warner in that scene where he's opposite Miss Nichols as the Egyptian queen, and he's sort of he's giving his sales pitch to her of why he deserves this gift of knowledge and immortality, and how he's lived for all these centuries, and he has this. I think he always brings that certain gravitas and grandiose nature to whatever he's doing as Raish here. So having him back there, and having him be more like the Bond villain who kind of shows up to taunt and then springs the death trap and leaves, and then once our heroes do the heavy lifting, he reappears at the end to try to reap the benefits before ultimately kind of being undone by his own greed and lust for power. And he has one line where he's I think when he's leaving Talia and Bruce to die in the death trap, he says something like, it's often been said that you are made immortal through the lives of your children, or something, and clearly that's not true when it comes to you, or something. It's just like a really cold line to say to your daughter that he drops on Talia. And it's always good when he's around. And definitely I think the stars of the show are of course Helen Slater and Kevin Conroy, and we do have a brief interaction with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred as well. But those are definitely the big highlights there.
I love the one line that as David Warner is delivering this exposition about his interest in this scroll and why he's after trying to find this ancient tomb, and Bruce Kevin Conroy's delivery of the line of, "Wow, Raish, the world's oldest chauvinist chasing after a woman." It's perfect. It's delivered
Incredible.
So well, with like just a hint of like cutting sarcasm. Yeah, real a sick burn. A sick burn, great delivery. We get some good brief interactions and some barbs back and forth, verbal sparring between them, both in the original and the scene at the museum after he throws the snake at him, and after he leaves him in the glass box. And so yeah, there's some good verbal sparring back and forth between them. So yeah, some pretty big performances this week, and reflected in our scores.
Yeah, the very last line of the episode is as Talia has freed him and is sort of, saying that, though she loves Bruce, that he's still her father. And as they're walking away, of course, he gets one last taunt in. And he says, "Another time, detective," and Batman sort of just quietly says, "Yes, there will be another time," as he starts to walk away. It's just picture perfect to let you know that these sort of eternal rivals will meet again in the future.
There you go. All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to wrap things up here. So let us get our totals for this week's episode. We shouldn't be too far off because we had matching scores for several of our categories today, but ended up with a pretty strong 32 out of 40 myself. What about you?
Yeah, and I'm just a couple points lower at a 29 out of 40. So we can chat about rewatchability real quick. Like, my first instinct was no, but I guess it does establish that Raish is alive. I mean, you see the hand come out of the Lazarus pit at the end of one, but it is the next chapter in that relationship. And other than our future Superman episode, is it only the Jonah Hex episode that we have left for Raish in the series?
I believe so. Yeah, we have the Jonah Hex episode, we have the Raish, and then we have the Batman Beyond episode, of course.
Oh, of course. So yeah, this is like our last proper confrontation. I feel like between Batman and Raish in this series, and Talia's, I don't believe, is in the Jonah Hex episode. So this is, I believe, the last appearance of Talia in the series. So I feel like this gets maybe one thumb up. Like I said, I didn't love this from a story perspective just because of the way it kind of all shook out at the end. But I think it's still returning characters, and as you said, it does deepen the relationship of Bruce and Talia, certainly. So hey, when you get to that to that Superman episode, the Batman Beyond episode, and Bruce is kind of reflecting on his especially in that Batman Beyond episode, Bruce reflecting on his past loves, and Talia in particular is a big part of that episode. So having seen this episode, and that, I think, maybe makes that episode mean a little bit more when you get to it. So yeah, I think this one, if not for the importance to its own series, I think it maybe gets a thumb up for being an important linchpin to the larger DCAU and how it affects the other series, the future series.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth on this, on whether I'd say I think if you miss it, you don't miss a whole lot. Like, if this part is taken out, if you didn't have this one in your collection, is there anything that you miss from it other than the deepening of the relationship between Talia and Bruce? I'd say no, because yeah, Raish comes back, but we already knew, as you said, the cliffhanger at the end of the Demon's Quest shows us that he's still alive. So yeah, I'd give it a thumb up. I'd say I think there's enough in the episode if you're watching, or if you want to watch the Raish trilogy, like if you want to make this the trilogy. I know there's another episode, 2 episodes where he's featured, but this kind of feels like the culmination of all of Kevin Altieri's work together, to put this trilogy together, as he was involved in Off Balance, and then the Demon's Quest as well. So if you want to watch the Altieri cut, or the Altieri trilogy of Ra's al Ghul episodes, then yeah, I'd say go for 2 thumbs up. But if you're just if you're casually watching it, I wouldn't say that this is a must watch if you're just showing the best of the best episodes. But there is some important stuff that happens here. So yeah, 1 thumb up.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And don't forget, we would love your support for the podcast. You have several ways that you can do that. A couple of the free ways to do so, easiest ways to do so even, are to follow us on social media at DCAU Review, both on Twitter and Instagram. You can interact with us there as well. Shoot us a DM or tweet at us if you want to join in our conversations. We have lots of fun. Twitter, it can be really, really terrible place a lot of the time, but one of the favorite things that we get to do in as far as the podcast is concerned is talking with other DCAU creators and people that are still fans of this and people that offer their thoughts on things, favorite parts of episodes and such. So Liam does a great job of running the account. So head over to Twitter, tweet at us at DCAU Review, or head over to our Instagram. We post our clips from our upcoming episodes and lots of other DCAU stuff there as well. Don't forget, we also would love for you to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, whether you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any of the other ancillary podcast app platforms. Give us a subscribe, and if it allows you to leave a review, we would very much appreciate that. 5 stars helps us out a lot, and if it allows you to leave a little blurb, you can do so there. If you do listen to us on Spotify, you can interact with us via our weekly poll that's exclusive to Spotify, or our weekly. We also include a weekly questionnaire, so you can answer the question of the week also. So interact with us that way. If you're looking to support us financially, there's a couple ways you can do that as well. There is a link, first and foremost, at the bottom of our Anchor page. It's also in the notes. You can buy us a coffee if you wish. It's our anchor.fm/DCAU Review. You can support us that way. You can also head over to DCAUreview.com and click on the store tab, or check out the show notes. There's a link there to check out our store. You can pick up a piece of merchandise. And of course, we also would love for you to subscribe to us on youtube.com/thepodtower, like our videos there, and subscribe there as well. Not only will you get great content from us, but some great content from other DCAU creators as well. Liam, we are sticking here with our Batman the Animated Series reviews for the rest of the month, and that means we are continuing with our next in line here, at least as far as production order, with another episode next week.
That's right, and of course it is the season of love and greeting cards, and so with it being Valentine's weekend next week, we thought, how about an appropriate one? Next one in production order just happens to be, I love a little bit of accidental synergy on this. Happens to be the episode House and Garden, a poison ivy themed episode that takes a very dark twist as it goes along, but we'll have to get into that one and all the strange happenings going on in the Isley household when we join you for House and Garden next week.
Absolutely, gonna be a fun one. Can't wait. But until then, I'm Cal,
and I'm Liam,
and we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye bye.